Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast and in partnership with Vertical Valor magazine. In this episode, Jack Shanley and I sit down with Brandon Rose, who's the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department Chief Pilot.
And then, of course, we hear about Camp Mystic with all the girls stuck over there and the cabin that washed away. By the end of the day, my guys ended up rescuing 3 out of trees and stuck on limbs with the hoist. And I think Texas DPS had around the same numbers. And then right after that, we focused on Camp Mystic. And we couldn't get game warden trucks or boats out there. So helicopter was the only way out for these girls that are scared to death and, crying and muddy and everything else. So
the conversation highlights the critical response to the devastating floods that swept through hill country in central Texas in July 2025, with Brandon sharing valuable insights into the numerous challenges faced during rescue operations amid severe weather conditions. In July 2025, the hill country region of Texas experienced catastrophic flooding when water levels along the Guadalupe River rose rapidly, overwhelming communities and complicating rescue efforts. This intense flooding resulted in at least 135 fatalities, with over 117 occurring in Kerr County. This event was driven by a mesoscale convective vortex enhanced by tropical moisture from the remnants of Tropical Storm Barry, which was a short-lived tropical cyclone, along with residual moisture from the eastern Pacific. Brandon's insights highlight the resilience, adaptability, and skill required by rescue teams to effectively navigate extreme weather conditions. He emphasizes the importance of thorough training and mission proficiency, alongside the critical role that advanced technology plays in enhancing emergency response capabilities. The importance of accurate forecasting and the integration of UAS technology in emergency response are highlighted. Brandon also reflects on his journey to becoming a game warden and a pilot. During the conversation, Brandon discusses the evolution of aircraft used in public safety, the training and operations for rescue missions, and the challenges faced in adapting new mission profiles. He highlights the importance of technology, particularly drones and artificial intelligence, in enhancing operational efficiency. This conversation concludes with advice for aspiring public safety aviators, emphasizing perseverance and the importance of training. Thank you to our sponsors, Dallas Avionics, Robinson Helicopter Company, and Precision Aviation Group.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like they're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is medevac. Visit contest.verticalhelicasts.com to enter the buzzword.
Hey, welcome to Hangar Z podcast. I'm your host, John Gray. Really excited to be here today for this recording. We're coming to you on the heels of AppsCon. We had a really, really good week in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, which was really cool because we had not only got to be in Phoenix for the conference, we were there for the Blades of Valor tour. So we had a good time back in March when we were there to visit to begin with. We get to go back to AppsCon in July and see those same folks from Phoenix again and all our friends from the industry, including today's guest, Brandon Rose. How you doing, sir?
good. How are you guys?
Excellent. Yeah, for those that remember and listened during the AppsCon preview episode, Brandon came on and talked about running for the Central Region Director's position. And we've got great news for you. Not only did Brandon won, but Frank won as well. Brandon is the APSA treasurer, and Frank Peck has been elected to the Central Region Director position. So congratulations to you and congratulations to Frank. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a super great thing. Thank you.
Yeah. With us today to spear this conversation is the commander, Jack Shanley. How you doing, sir?
Good, John. It's good to be with Brandon again. We were with him in person last week, and now we're with him on the screens here to knock this out. But great news as treasurer and Frank gets in Central Region. So both people I kind of feel, John, that we may be responsible for that actually, because both of them were on, the Hangar Z with their spiels about what they could bring the organization, and they both get in. So winning all around, and I think we should take some credit there.
Definitely 100% you guys.
But no, the conference was great. A lot of great response. Always good seeing our friends there. From your perspective, what were your thoughts on this year's attendance and everything else, Brandon?
Yeah, I thought another great year. Attendance was up, real comparable to the last several years, and always good networking. And I'll hit on it in a minute, but from the kind of a newer chief pilot position, I did more networking with vendors than I've ever done at any conference this year. It was really good. And then from what I hear, feedback from some of my guys that went, training was awesome. So another great conference for sure.
Yeah, it was really cool. Our booth there was a lot of people. It seemed like the whole time everyone wanted to come over and say hi to the commander. He was offering autographs for people. On a serious note, thanks to Airbus, they did sponsor a book signing that we participated in. It was really cool.
That was nice.
Jack autographed and signed, was it 60 books for folks?
Yeah.
I'm at the booth and I'm setting up some recording equipment, and it's like 12 o'clock and the book signing's at like 12:30. And all these people start kind of standing off to the side. I'm like, what is going on? What are all these people doing here? And I look at my watch and look over at Jack, and Jack's doing his wrist exercises, getting ready to start. And I'm like, oh, okay. They're here lining up in advance.
You told them, be first in line, limited copies. I mean, you said that over and over. So they listen to you, John. People are listening to you.
Our friend Brad said he was going to pop a tent and camp out overnight. So I was actually surprised to come in and find there was no tent.
Thanks again to Airbus. That was cool.
John, did you get to sign any FLIR cameras? You were there?
Yeah. Brian Smith brought over a poster and asked me to sign it, and I put my ex on there, literally.
Yeah. During a podcast.
We had a good time. Kudos to APSA for putting that conference on. It's always great. We look forward to it every year. It's kind of referred to it as our Super Bowl, a chance for all of us to get together and say hi, see, old friends we've had and meet new ones. And every year I walk away from that conference reinvigorated and excited for our industry. So thank you guys for all the work and effort you put into that. It's awesome.
And just for those that weren't there, I know John has said that it was cool about 5 times. Put that in quotes. Put that word in quotes. It was cool because it was fun and neat and unique. It was not cool.
Well,
it was odd.
It was cool in the convention center, but then you walk out the front door and get blasted with 5,000 degree air.
It's a dry heat.
I've never been to Arizona, and first time ever, just at night, you walk out in the dark, it's over 100 degrees. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You look outside, and because it's dark, you think you're walking into a cooler environment. Nope, you're not.
Yeah.
Well, we were going to record with you before AppsCon, and it didn't work out. And, it didn't work out for unfortunate reasons. It's because of the flooding that took place in Texas. But it does provide us with an opportunity for us to talk to you and kind of get some of your perspective on what took place in the floods, since your agency was able to respond and provide help and relief to the folks that were affected by that. So if we could just start the conversation out with some insights from you on your response, your agency's response, and the state response to what happened in the flooding.
Yeah, sure. So, we knew some weather was coming in. We had no idea what it was going to be the night before. One of my guys was on call, and I got a wake up call shortly after 4 a.m. from one of my majors saying, "Hey, we need you guys to fly out here, Kerrville area. This is going to be horrible. It's going to be worse than the Wimberley floods we had in Texas around 2015." And I mean, he described it as very bad, so I knew it was going to be pretty urgent. So got on the phone, called my guys, and of course checked the weather, and weather didn't look good. Of course, we don't hoist at night. We only hoist daytime. So got a hold of him and the TFO, and they got to the airport real quick, and then as soon as daylight hit, they were able to launch. And made it out there, dodged some weather, but made it out there safely. And as soon as they get out there, there's rescues to be done. Our helicopter, my guys were the first helicopter on scene over there with Texas DPS shortly behind us, and then the Guard, and then I believe Border Patrol and Coast Guard also. But so yeah, as soon as they get out there, there's people stuck in trees, hanging onto limbs in the water, in the rushing currents, and then of course we hear about Camp Mystic with all the girls stuck over there, and the cabin that washed away. So by the end of the day, my guys ended up rescuing 3 out of trees and stuck on limbs with the hoist, and I think Texas DPS had around the same numbers. And then we right after that we focused on Camp Mystic, and we couldn't get game warden trucks or boats out there, so helicopter was the only way out for these girls they're scared to death and crying and muddy and everything else. So we emptied out the back of the helicopters, and by then I was able to get there as a backup pilot with our other helicopter and another TFO hoist operator, and so we had 2 of our helicopters carrying 4 of these little girls on the back floor in the mud. And I hate to say it, but it was a sad scene, and we drop them off at the CCP, and they put them on a bus, get them to the hospital, and get them to safety. But that's how it kind of started the day. And then of course we went into some body recoveries, hoisting those out of the helicopters as well, and transporting game wardens to different places. We got our game wardens by helicopter out there at Camp Mystic, I believe, before any other rescuers were out there, and they were helping to guide the girls onto the helicopter, keeping them safe, from tail rotors and all that. And then when the water started to get down, we had our game warden trucks able to get out there and haul the rest of them out that us and the Blackhawks with the Guard couldn't get out. So, so yeah, it was a crazy time. And then the next several days throughout the week were spent just trying to search for victims. And then Friday, we had the president come out, and that was cool to meet him. I'll say he was a couple feet away from me, and super sympathetic. He and the First Lady both were very honestly, you could tell they really did care and weren't looking at their watch or looking away. They were making eye contact with everybody, very emotional. They spent a long time before even meeting first responders with the victims' families. I'd say a couple hours probably with the families. So
wow,
very appreciable.
The heartbreak that comes from that is close to home, especially for you being in Texas. But our good friend Clay Lacey, he lost some close family friends, and I'd imagine the degrees of separation are so low, especially in Texas. Everybody isn't impacted in one way or another, whether it's family or friends. But horribly sad. I having kids that go to camp, I can't imagine dropping your kids off thinking I'm gonna be back in a week to pick them up, and that week never ends. And just horribly sad. But I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Travis County Starflight pilot yesterday, and he was talking about the weather and how usually you guys get the squall lines that come through, but visibility is not usually that bad. The cloud level is not usually super low. But he said with this particular storm, visibility was horrible. The base odds were super low. He said them, Coast Guard, and I think Texas DPS could not fly, couldn't respond initially. Can you talk about that weather phenomenon and how that impacted operations in the very beginning?
Yeah, same with me. My lieutenant pilot, he got out there shortly after 8 a.m., I believe, and then we were up ready to go, and we would have gotten there on scene probably about 9:30. But because of the weather conditions, I had to land in the middle of a hill in the Texas Hill Country and wait out some heavy rain that had come through. And then when that went through, we tried to continue on towards Kerrville, and we hit just a complete line of fog, just a clear, solid line that we tried going north and south of it, couldn't get around it at all. So we had to land at Fredericksburg Airport and wait that out and tried again and landed again, and then finally made it out there and got there just in the afternoon. But yeah, it was bad weather, and luckily like I said, my first group, and then a DPS helicopter was able to make it out in the beginning.
If I hear folks saying that Coast Guard's not able to deploy, you know that there's a major issue. You know, those folks fly regardless of the weather, you know. So the conditions you guys went through to try and rescue those folks is highly admirable. But kudos to you and all the folks, you know, in the air and on the ground that made their way out there to assist those good people on the ground. Just again, heartbreaking.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Brandon, did you realize in the early hours how bad it really was? I mean, was it very clear to you from the information you were getting and from what you were seeing that it was as bad as we all know now?
Yeah, after initially talking to the guys that got there first, I knew from what they were saying that they were doing rescues right off the bat, it was going to be bad. But then hearing from the major that called initially, I mean, he told me right off the bat how bad it was going to be. He said that you're going to see bodies floating in the river. I mean, we knew it was going to be that bad. Just hundreds of people impacted. So,
wow.
And luckily in the aircraft, I mean, we saw some stuff from the air, but talking to the guys on the ground, we had, I wanted to say we had something like 200 game wardens there that whole week at any given time in shifts, and some of the stuff that like our SAR team saw going calls to call on the ground to these cabins and stuff on the river is horrible, scary stuff.
Talk about that a little bit. When you're actually doing a hoist, I mean, there's concentration levels that are very high. Obviously, you're trained and you're skilled and all that, but you have to really concentrate. And it's probably easy to kind of put aside the tragedy while you're actually doing that particular hoist. But then you land and you go for fuel, or you need to just get a break, whatever it is. How does that hit you personally, and how do you go back out and do it some more? Talk about your personal experience with that.
Thanks to our sponsor, Dallas Avionics, who provides innovative products to law enforcement, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, military, air medical, search and rescue, and special missions operations. Dallas Avionics distributes OEM equipment, including communications equipment, digital audio systems, PA systems, flight tracking, and other mission-critical devices. Visit DallasAvionics.com for more details.
Yeah, I'd say, training a lot helps, especially hoist training. I mean, you just like firearms training or anything else as a cop, you get into the mode, it just becomes natural. You're doing what you always do, even if sometimes your mind may be somewhere else. But yeah, that's exactly the case. I mean, you've got to work hard and keep going and try to save and move as many people as you can to safety. And of course, at the end of the day, when it's dark, you're laying in bed, you're thinking about it maybe. And yeah, you've just gotta, I think for me, religion and my faith in God comes into play. And I know, God has a plan, and we live in a fallen world, unfortunately.
Yeah. Clay talked about that too, about how important his faith was to dealing with it last week when we were seeing him. Yeah, that's important. And the last thing for me on this, how are you and your crews doing now that you've had a chance, I mean, to step back, you see the numbers, you see the photos, you see all the negative, you were involved in a positive way, you saved lives, but how things going now, and does your department do anything specifically for you and the 200 plus that were on the ground to make sure that you're going to be okay in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, our department does have a really good peer support team. I was listening to your Tanya Glenn podcast too, and I know she talked about how some do and some don't. Ours does. We have very experienced game wardens that you're not hearing from a social work psychiatrist or whatever. You're hearing from one of your peers, a game warden who's trained and really cares and has been through what you've been through, and they reach out and try to help. And so we have that resource, and then we also have just get-togethers like today, actually, our SAR team is hosting kind of an overnight cookout, get together to vent and talk about everything. And I'm sure have a few beers and that kind of stuff to help through it. And then we have just professional care through the state if we need that. And then on top of that, our senior staff, our leadership is really good on recognizing, heroic actions like this. And so we're already in the talks of awards to get some of these guys that did the work.
But these are the kind of conversations that make me reflect a little bit on our conversation with Johnny Gray when he talks about how today he's fine, but unknown what this event, how that'll impact your career as you go forward. So love that you guys are already implementing steps to help mitigate some of the impacts this may have over the course of your life and career. Again, we don't know how these things will impact us in the days to follow. I think a lot of it, as we're going through it, we're just going to to the next fight. We're going to the next day, and we're kind of compartmentalizing it until like we talked about earlier. You run out of compartment space. You're like, well, now what? So kudos to you guys and your administration for seeing the need for that and addressing that. That's really cool. I think if this was
to hear
20 years ago, we may be in a different position. We're like, oh, you guys are fine. Just go fly. Get out there.
Yep, suck it up.
Oh yeah,
It's your job.
Well, yeah. As an early city cop, I remember my sergeant just saying, "Go wait outside. That's it. You see something like that, and that's all you hear."
Yeah. So love to hear that. The last question I have on this incident goes back to the forecasting. I've heard a lot of conversation about the forecasting that took place in advance of the storm. Can you talk about the forecasts and I guess before that? I remember being back in South Carolina when the hurricane was preparing to go through there about a year ago, and them saying this was a once in a generation type storm that was coming through. And those words to me piqued my interest. I'm like, oh, I don't think that's normal language. Were you hearing that kind of language in the forecast in advance of the storm?
No, not in the forecast. I mean, in Texas we have all kinds of weird weather. We get snowmageddon and heat waves, and then it's all kinds of different. But there are some forecasts. There was a flood warning forecast the night before, and we get those on our phones, the flash flood, whatever it was, 9:10 the night before, and you get the alert, and you're like, okay, another flood. We've been through this a million times, whatever. So you ignore it, and but yeah, nobody saw how extreme this was going to be. I did on Friday for the as the president was coming, I was there at the EOC, and they talked about, the engineer kind of gave a presentation of exactly what the numbers were from rainfall and the river levels and how fast they came up. And it was literally the perfect storm that was just a huge amount of rain in just the right spot that made a wall of water in the river.
Do you remember the numbers that they gave out as far as precipitation goes?
Man, I'm sorry. I don't want to lie. I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. A significant amount for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
And it kind of stalled too, didn't it? Was there a stalling effect? Because you experienced that too, John, on Helen. That was a stall too, where if it had kept moving, it would have been a flood, but it didn't keep moving. It stalled, and that caused this extreme flood because it's just dumping at the same spot for long periods of time. Very similar. I read a couple articles that said, wow, the similarities are amazing. And the fact that most storms don't stall like that, but occasionally they do. And when they do, stand by. There's going to be excessive water that the normal creeks and streams cannot handle.
Yeah, looking at it on the radar, it was really weird. It looked like a mini hurricane almost, with a cyclone action of just rain and showers right there over Kerr County the whole time.
Wow. Was that storm the remnants of a hurricane that had gone through Mexico, or was that just a traditional thunderstorm?
I don't think so. I think it was just traditional. I hadn't heard days before of any hurricane or tropical storms coming through.
Okay. Yeah. What's interesting as we go forward, and I talk about technology a lot, and looking at AI models and how AI models will be able to improve the forecasting with this as we go forward. I'm really interested and excited to see that, especially for the aviation world, to help us figure out how and when to deploy resources and and how and when we can safely deploy our aircraft without, going into some of these areas. I'm assuming a lot of the areas you flew into, there's no METAR information, there's no remote weather system or weather cameras or any of that kind of stuff, or are there weather cameras out there that you could access to see current conditions?
Yeah, not that I know of. Now there are, Texas is really good on their river systems on putting river levels and that kind of stuff and posting them online. But I think by the time that amount of water was coming through, there's no time for warning, especially 3-4 in the morning. It's just not realistic. I mean, yeah, I've heard all the arguments from the media that they could have put sirens all over the place, but to me, you'd have to put sirens everywhere around every bend of that river, which is tough to do. So,
yeah. And it has flooded before, but it's not like it's an annual event, where that these are going to be used regularly. When the siren situation for warnings is when there's regular events, but it's so unpredictable. Weather is very unpredictable. It always has been. It always will be. Mm-hmm. And it's just there's only so much you can do. You got to do what's practical. In hindsight, it's easy to say, "Oh, there should have been sirens." Okay, that means we're going to have a siren on every single waterway in the United States of America, because
That's right.
It could happen anywhere. There are places where it happens more often and regularly. That's different, but it's just one of those terrible events, and it just so happens it's in summertime when camp's in session. I mean, like you said earlier, Brandon, you said perfect storm. Yeah. All these things aligned to cause a storm and tragedy, and it's just awful. But there's not much we can do about it. It's hard to force. You can't look into the future. If we could, everybody be safe about everything, and that's not the world we live in.
Exactly.
Last point on this. Do you happen to know, at least general figures, how many folks were transported by helicopter that survived, in the totality of this incident, not just from your agency, but from all agencies involved?
And I want to say it was by helicopter. It was something probably in the 150 at Camp Mystic that I know of, somewhere around there. Our 2 helicopters transported 65. And then, of course, the Blackhawks were doing a lot more than we were. And then like I said, I saw the game warden trucks with the truck beds full of girls coming down the creeks and stuff. So,
wow. Is there an after action debrief planned that all of you are going to be involved in? Do you know of anything official about that, or is it going to be individual units doing it?
So far, it's individual units. Like I said, the SAR teams was today. On Friday, our senior staff is having one. And then, I'm sure the other units are probably doing their own. Now, we, as a state agency with a lot of travel time, I don't see them doing a statewide after action unless it's more of a Teams call or online thing. Just because we pulled game wardens from every part of the state on shifts to come over here. So
yeah. Because I'm curious too, John. I mean, in the end, those numbers will be really interesting and impressive. With you, as long as each unit does their own debrief and stats and after action, putting those all together into one report would be really beneficial for a lot of things. Lessons learned being the top one. What can we do better? We can all do better. Now's not the time to be talking about that. They're still in action, but what can we do better? But just knowing the lives saved and rescued, it just would show the value of all of these units, and what they do and how they do it, and the value of aviation assets. So the numbers will be really important at some point. I hope they put something together that we can all look at someday and just really take it all in as to the how enormous this event was.
Yeah,
for sure.
The Texas SARX training exercise that the state puts on, I've got to imagine that played a big role in your guys' preparedness and ability to respond to this incident. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I agree. We think we started doing the SAR-X's shortly after Hurricane Harvey, and learning from that. And yeah, it's awesome because we're working with the same groups of people, the same National Guard, Coast Guard comms, the different PDs, Austin, San Antonio, and yeah, just working alongside those guys and coordinating communications and everything. Yeah, it's a huge help in preparing for this.
For
Sure.
those that don't know what SAR-X is in Texas, could you give a quick thumbnail of what you do in that training?
Yeah, so SAR-X is just kind of a simulated disaster. It's I believe it's a 3-day long event every year. This year it was it's usually around April and May, but a 3-day long event that we simulated disaster. We involve any aviation unit that wants to come over. In Texas, even this year, we had some Arkansas aviation units, and then I believe Oklahoma, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, they come over, and day one is the brief and talk about all the things we're using, the ATAC, ITAC side, and all the frequencies and the plans, the locations, chords. And then day two is when it actually starts, and you go on simulated calls. And of course, they brief you on one thing, and then when it actually happens, even the plans change last minute on a lot of things. So it's realistic that you're getting some surprises and not able to plan for things that happen. But and then day three is usually the debriefs, and they have vendors and support there. We had a lot of our avionics support companies there. If we did have an incident, we had to down a helicopter that they could try to get it back up to keep participating in the event. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's I think for us, we had 3 hoist qualified pilots, and we all got some time on simulated rescues in, and so it was good.
And that SAR-X includes UAS assets now, correct?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did that work? Can you talk about your experience with the integration of drones with the operations that you did on the flood?
Sure. As far as SAR-X and the flood?
What? Let's just go back to the flood. I mean, they use them at SAR-X. You've been exposed to that in a training scenario where there are drone assets that you can use or not use depending on the scenario. But so let's go to the flood. Did you personally were you working with UAS assets and integrating with them to get the job done?
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Definitely, yeah. So our UAS unit, I'll talk about it a little more, but it's huge. We've got 50-ish game warden and park police UAS pilots across the state, and something like 65 drones, I think. So we had several drones running around there. I want to say something like 6 at a time, somewhere around there. But what's cool is the software that these drones have. It's highly advanced. I think more advanced than some of the manned downlink stuff. So they were able to send live drone feed from Kerrville to the SOC in Austin, and all these guys sitting in the room in Austin can see exactly what the damage actually looks like in real time. And then also same with helping search. Drone pilots are searching, maybe looking on a little screen, and it's broadcasted onto a huge screen where somebody can say, "Oh, what's that red spot right there? Take another look," that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, we were running drones nonstop during daylight hours nearly the whole week. So,
and what are your thoughts on that, on the integration within your own unit? Are you happy where you're at with the integration part and communicating and working together?
So overall, I'm happy. Yeah, I'd say, it's a definite great resource to help supplement manned aviation, but on the communication side, I think that could be improved. They don't want to talk on aviation frequencies, and they also know that we've got enough just avoiding other aircraft and trying to handle calls and that kind of stuff. So they don't want to step in there and say, hey, we're going to be operating right here and taking up time. So even in Kerrville, we had some of our own drones launching and just trying to be aware and look out for the manned stuff without communicating. But so I would say that's on the after action stuff, something I'm going to mention. But
communication is important. Yeah, really important.
Interesting, because that's been the one thing that we've kind of focused on as the importance of integration is because the need for communication is huge. We're asking folks who've never been on the manned aviation side to step into the aviation world and communicate as if they've been in that world, whether it's on your primary dispatch frequency or whether an agency has access to air-to-air frequency. It's challenging. I really think there's a lot of work to be done in figuring out how to best communicate with each other. So I love that you highlighted that, because I think that's something that will be somewhat of a growing pain as we go forward, but really cool to hear the fact that you guys did operate together and there was some positive results as it relates to that. So
yeah, for sure. And I think with the technology growing, one of the things that's going to come up sooner than later is some kind of ADSB or joint software. Our guys use some drone sense software, and if they could integrate that into WinTAC, ATAC, ITAC that we might use on our shot over system in the helicopter, where we can at least see where these guys are, would help a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I think I cut you off a second ago. Do you have a point you wanted to bring up before I cut you off? Sorry about that.
As far as the UAS, I don't think so. We were trying to maintain different altitudes also, but that's impossible on this, because when we're searching for bodies, we're going to be low and right there where the drones are flying. So
yeah, that's the first thing that popped in my head, that this is unique. This isn't a normal suspect search or a normal missing person search. This is you're going to have to get down there to really see well into the thick brush and water and trees and just the debris. And now if you have UAS assets on scene, now you're into that drone zone, and it's going to be more important than ever to talk and to know where each other is and what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I could see how that could complicate the situation dramatically.
Exactly.
Well, this incident, highlights the value of helicopters, the life-saving value of helicopters. We're 20 years outside of Katrina, and helicopters continue to amaze me in the ability to respond to these types of disasters. I mean, you talked about no other tool was at our disposal to respond and assist the good folks that needed help. But helicopters are the one thing that could actually do the job. So proud to be a part of the community that we're a part of. Honored that you guys would do that, and that you're here to talk to us about the things you experience. Thank you for that. Appreciate your time spent there. I want to go back to you and get an idea of where you came from, what your background is, and how you got into the aviation role that you're in now.
My dad was a flight instructor back in the 60s and a corporate pilot off and on while running an air conditioner business. But so he kind of had me gain an interest in flying at a younger age. And then I went to college at Texas A&M. And while there, I spent one summer while I was there working on my private pilot license. My dad helped instruct me and got that. And then also while in college, one of my big role models in my life was my uncle, who was a cop for a long time. He was Dallas PD and San Marcos PD in Texas, and then went on to be a director of the San Antonio Police College Police Academy. And he had been bugging me about looking into law enforcement. And I kind of grew up in a pretty dysfunctional childhood in a children's home in South Texas. And so I thought, man, that sounds good. I really do have a passion for helping and serving people and making a difference in things that people made a difference in my life in. And so I spent 11 months doing a weekend police academy at his school and while in college. And then I had my degree was wildlife and fishery sciences, and being hunting and fishing throughout my childhood. It had a big impact on me, and I always wanted to do something in that world, whether a marine biologist or biologist, or even considered game warden. And so once I graduated the police academy, I started setting my sights at being a game warden. And I guess when I graduated college, I put in for the game warden academy and the College Station Police Department, which is where I was already living. And the game warden academy wasn't going to start for another 11 months, and I needed pay out of college, so took the PD job and ended up loving that. And I worked night shift for 6 years straight there on patrol, and just loved the variety of the work, the action. And but then eventually I thought, well, I better go do what I wanted to do and try out this game warden thing. So 6 years in, I did that and was hired on. And I started out as a single warden county in Falls County in Central Texas, and fell in love with that. Did that for a couple of years, and then a spot in our aviation unit opened up, and I knew all of our pilots were dual-rated helicopter fixed wing. We had two OH-58s at the time, two Cessna 206s, and one Parton Avia, and so I expressed interest, and our colonel at the time said, "Hey, we'll give you a shot at the aviation unit if you get your helicopter add-on on your own." So another, 4 months goes by every weekend I can, and taking time off work, and 20-something thousand out of pocket. So I eventually did that and got on, and have loved it ever since. So
That's cool. So did you were a game warden in the field prior to going to aviation, though? Is that correct? Or did you come over into aviation? Okay.
Yeah, I spent a couple of years in the field before, not as long as I did as an officer, but yeah.
So looking over the time you spent at College Station and then your current agency in the field, what was one of the most impactful or interesting things that you were a part of? I have to imagine as a game warden, you guys are part of some pretty interesting things. I'm sure you see some weird stuff back in the woods and you by yourself. What kind of interesting incidents or missions, I guess, were you a part of that comes to mind?
And so between, you mentioned both of those. So I'll say with the PD, my biggest thing that I tried to hit on to make a difference, I was in, College Central Texas, where college kids are partying left and right. And my niche was DWIs. So you stop any car for a license plate light out on after 2 a.m., they're going to be drunk. So they were fishing a barrel kind of, but I enjoyed doing them, got quick at them. And I worked a ton of wrecks where whole families in a car killed by a drunk driver and that kind of stuff. And it's like, I feel like the biggest difference I made in really saving innocent lives is going after drunk drivers.
Yeah.
So then same thing as a game warden, I got on and moved from not spending much time on the water to being a game warden and trying to make my thing BWIs, boating while intoxicated. And did a lot of that. And then also I would say just the dream game warden's case is to catch a road hunter killing deer on somebody else's property. It's a felony in Texas. So it's I did get the chance to make a couple memorable cases on those. So
Nice.
It's funny when you started talking about how the goal of game warden and why, I've had the opportunity to be around a lot of the Oregon State Police Fish and Wildlife Division guys. They have a whole section of the state police that just does fish and wildlife. And I wasn't aware of that until I moved here and I was teaching at the academy, and I'm around a lot of those guys. Their stories are fascinating. And the thing that really hit me was that all of them have a smile on their face. And the reason is because of what you described. You were a fisherman, you were a hunter, you're an outdoors person, but you need to make a living, and you kind of are interested in this law enforcement thing. You're in the heaven job. I mean, you're in the perfect job for your background and what you like. You're outdoors. A lot of it's on your own, but it involves surveillance. It involves all sorts of aspects of law enforcement that people don't realize. So is that true today? I mean, you still are thrilled that you got the dream job from your background?
Oh yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. It's like, if you hunt and fish, you have friends that hunt and fish, you get excited when they kill something big or they catch something big, especially kids. And so just going out there and checking these guys and checking a kid who got his first buck or something, or a huge redfish is awesome. It's the dream. And then also coming from, I tell people another reason our agency is the dream job is coming from a PD where you're on a set working 10P to 10A every single day.
Yeah.
As a game warden, you're your own boss. You're in your own county. Your supervisor may be, 5 counties and 2 or 3 hours away.
Yeah.
So you kind of set your own schedule. You decide when you want to go to work, when you need to go to work, aside from like holidays. Everybody's working July 4th weekend on the lake or something like that.
Sure.
But really it's super flexible.
Yeah.
And yeah, just like you said, the work is awesome. I've told my son's stories, and I've got 2 of them. They're going to be game wardens when they grow up. So
yeah,
That's cool.
And then you
Not
add aviation. Oh, you add aviation to it. It takes it up another level. Okay,
Exactly.
fishing, game, cop, aviation. You know,
Yes.
three passions into one position. It seems like a perfect job for you, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you.
That's
Yeah.
great. Good for you for achieving that goal.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it is.
What's interesting to me is you go from being a city police officer where you've got available units to help you probably within minutes of whatever incident you're working. And then you go to a game warden position and you could be miles out in the bush on a lake somewhere where your response for a backing unit is prolonged, to say the least. Talk about the communication skills that you need to apply, when you go from the city environment to the rural environment that you're operating in now.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So yeah, it did affect me as a new game warden for sure. Exactly what you're talking about. So, with College Station PD, it's a tighter city, and I knew if I called for backup, I knew no matter where I was in the city, I'd have it at 5 minutes. So you kind of develop, even as a young skinny cop, I developed this fearlessness that you want to fight me, I'll get my friends. It's all right. So, but yeah, as a game warden coming out into like Falls County, I was the only game warden in the county, and there's 2 super small PDs in the county, 1 medium size, but it's such a small county that at night the sheriff's office had no deputies sometimes working. So yeah, I might have been the only LEO on duty at night to go respond to something big, and that happened a few times. But yeah, it's a different feeling. And like you said, when you come up on people, you have to develop a different verbal judo or whatever than you would if you weren't scared of taking people's crap.
Yeah,
that's a challenge. That's an art form too, I'll bet. That you developed. Did they talk about it early on and tell you that, like in your training? Hey, you're going to be by yourself. Don't be getting in people's faces. Figure out a way to talk to them and at least get a rapport, even if you're going to put them in handcuffs. Is that something that was trained?
Absolutely. Yeah, we did a ton of scenario training in the academy. In our academy, since they're teaching you the police side and the game warden wildlife side, it's longer than most academies. I think now it's maybe a little over 8 months long. But yeah, you go through tons of scenarios like that, red man drills and all that, simulations to prepare you. And I think it's good preparation. But yeah, I was thinking, I mean, there's stories of game wardens coming up on a group of guys that just kind of surround him, and the only thing he can do, knowing that they're up to no good, is kind of slowly back away and get back up and wait for backup. And so it can be scary.
Get them another day, right? You know, there's other bad guys on other days. Today's not the day. There's too many of them. I always admired that. I was with game wardens and small town police officers. I grew up in a small town where there might be one or two on duty, and they would say, "Oh wow, Los Angeles, man, that's wild, Jack, that you're there. It must be so dangerous." I'm going, not compared to what you do. And they're like, "How so?" I'm like, because I was with somebody in the same car. I had a partner 99.999% of the time, my entire career. That's a huge safety bonus. And if I keyed the mic and said, "Officer needs help," I'm going to have a helicopter and about 25 people there in seconds. So, and they'd go, "Oh," then it would click that, you know, they're alone. And it's just, you know, yes, I had volume and violence and a lot more calls to go to, but it was safer in many ways. Being alone in the middle of the county in the middle of the night with 3 people, that's much more dangerous than anything I did, you know, and I don't care what the violation is. That's secondary. It's the fact that you're by yourself. That takes courage, confidence, training, and some skills, especially communication. I'm glad we're talking about this. It's a cool topic, and you really experienced that firsthand.
Hey, Jack, you said regardless of the violation, that's 100% true. How many traffic stops are initiated based on a taillight out or something like you talked about, Brandon, and it turns into a fatal encounter unknowingly, you know?
All the time.
Same thing applies, you know, for you guys. You go out to contact a fisherman. Well, you don't know who the fisherman is or what he may have just done prior to fishing, you know? So, man, the edge that you walk is interesting, you know? So, yeah, I'd love to talk about that because it is very different from what I experienced as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I hadn't had any fisherman stories, but there are several game wardens that have just been, you know, lunged at from some guy in a boat and knocked them both into the water and start fighting.
Yeah. Over what? Over a fishing license or over, you know, right? Yeah. I mean, it's a simple contact that explodes, and that's typical in law enforcement. So all law enforcement deals with that, but if you're by yourself, you know, in the middle of nowhere, that just escalates this dramatically. And the average citizen doesn't think about that. They don't know. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. They don't know that, you know, they don't even know that 140, 150 officers are killed on line of duty a year. And they certainly don't know that many of those that are killed start with an everyday call or an everyday traffic stop for a nothing. It's a nothing in the big scheme of things, but it turns into the biggest event of that officer's life in seconds. And sometimes it takes that officer's life. And that's something that isn't communicated enough to the general public about the dangers of this job. And certainly, and that includes a game warden out enforcing, you know, violations by themselves. It's amazing that people sign up to do it, you know, when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, Brandon,
we did. So I guess we're crazy, all 3 of us.
That's it. Fortunately, as a game warden, most people we deal with are good people.
Right.
By their hunting license, they're out there doing right, maybe showing their kids how to do right. So it's good in that way. While as a city cop or deputy or something, you know, most people may be up to no good. Yes.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point.
Can you talk about your agency? You've talked a little bit about some of the roles. You talked about working on a boat. Obviously, you're in aviation. Talk about, you know, the agency as a whole. How many folks work there that are sworn, and some of the positions that are available for those that aren't in aviation or on a boat?
Sure. So our agency is, you know, the big Parks and Wildlife Agency of Texas. So we have several divisions. Texas game wardens fall under the law enforcement division. We also have other sworn officers, Texas park police officers, which these guys fall under our parks division. While they are law enforcement, they work a particular park usually and enforce violations in the park. While game wardens are more statewide, we work a particular county or several counties sometimes. Like in the Panhandle, you may have one game warden that's over 3 counties just because of the low populations. and then vice versa in, city of Houston or Harris County, Bexar County, Dallas County. They may have 5, 6, 7 game wardens in one county because of the population. But yeah, so the opportunities there to be a game warden. Our agency requires a bachelor's to be a game warden, but no prior experience. And then you like I said, you go through this 8+ month academy. You get out, you get assigned to a county. You can select your top 3 choices of what county you want, but you may not get any of those. I did not. I think probably 90% of my class did not. It was almost like pick something you don't want because you might get the one you want.
And it's funny you say that because I'm convinced they look at the 3 top picks that you select and like, we're not giving any one of those 3. You should put the ones you don't want first. Like, oh, we'll give the other ones. Because that happened to me. Then the top 3 picks, I didn't get any of them. Jack, I think you actually got yours, didn't you?
No. Out of the academy? No. And out of the academy, I don't think, this is a good question. I'm getting old. I don't think we had picks out of the academy. It was based on where you lived and the needs of the department strictly. But what you're talking about, John, is when you got off probation and we went on the wheel, it was called. You're going to get wheeled out to another division. Then they asked you, where do you want to go? And they didn't care where you lived. I mean, it was based on what do you want and do we have an opening there? And that's when I put 77th, 77th, 77th. I honestly did that. I put 77th as my top 3 choices. Guess where I went? 77th. So that was good. I mean, I wanted to go there. I was begging to go there basically. And at the time in the mid 80s, there was no line to go there. Okay. Because it was the place. It was the best place to learn and to experience, but it was also, a very violent place. And there was people that said, I ain't never going there. Well, I wanted to go there. I'm so thankful I did it. I met the best cops in the department there. Yeah. And I learned from them. But out of the academy, you just kind of went to where they needed you, and it was in vicinity of your house. So I went to Foothill in the Valley because I lived in the Valley. So that's how it kind of worked. I have no idea what they do now.
For me, the one place I didn't want to go was Southern Division, not because it's a bad division, but it's because the furthest division away from where I was living at the time in Minnesota. Yeah. And where did I go? Southern Division.
So out of the academy, John, you did get to put a wish list in?
Yeah. So it was after your phase training, you'd say these are the 3 divisions I want to go to. And in theory, you maybe go to one of those 3, but it didn't seem like that's the reality, which is fine. But I like we've had many times, we've had many conversations on the podcast. It's great for young officers to go to busy divisions.
Yes.
And that's, I think, what all of our goals was to go to the busy divisions. Well, not everybody can go to a busy division or the busiest divisions all the time. So I didn't get to go to Central, which is where I really, really wanted to go. But Southern Division turned out great. I got to experience some very unique operations, working on the border, having the port of entry there, being a part of the border crime suppression team was really interesting. And just being a part of a unique environment was great for me in my career. So while it wasn't it's actually my last choice, it was a good opportunity. The folks down there were amazing. So I think, like you said, Brandon, earlier, got as a plan that we don't always see and understand, but it works out for the betterment of where we go. So back to you. Talk a little bit more about getting into aviation. How do you, once you've decided, hey, this is something I'm interested in, how do you kind of track to get there?
So for our department, I think it's changed a lot over the years. Even the time I've been here, used to be, our aviation unit started up, we think, around 1930, but based on pictures and stuff, not great records back then. But yeah, it used to be a game warden was a pilot and either rented a plane or had his own plane and used it, and then eventually the agency started renting planes. But nowadays it's I was hired, kind of a rare case, internally, as I'd already had, just from getting my license at 20 years old and building up time over the next 12, 13 years. I'd had my commercial fixed wing and instrument and stuff like that with about 350, 400 hours. So my department gave me a shot at it. But after me, and some before, we hired externally. We were looking for pilots with quite a bit of experience, usually military. I think our requirements on the last couple postings were 1,000 hours total time. 500 had to be in a helicopter, had to be dual rated, and then of course also had to have your bachelor's degree. So we had some good success with that in the past, and I want to say we hired in my time hired 3 pilots that and had probably 20 something apply. But the last time we posted the position was when airlines were sucking everybody up and in big need, a couple of years ago. And then we didn't get a good turnout on interviews, and then had 2 guys picked, both of them backed out for better jobs. And so we were finally like, let's try something else. Let's go back to trying internally. So we posted it internally and ended up hiring or promoting one of our TFOs who had 0 flight time logged, but a ton of flight experience. And so we offered to pay his way through all the way fixed and rotor commercial. And so he's going through that now. I think he's got his instrument check ride maybe next week. So,
oh, very cool.
So yeah, so I tell people now there's a couple ways you could do it. Ideally, if it works out internal, I'd like that because that's kind of my story, and I think it helps knowing what you're looking for from the air and helps with the job and retention. You've already got that state time, so you're not going to jump off to an airline or something. But
yeah.
So yeah, ideally, if that's successful, we'll keep doing that.
But talk about the makeup of your air support unit now, as far as what aircraft you're flying, what your crew makeup is. You kind of referenced it a second ago, and then some of the missions you guys are a part of. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support. Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com. Thanks to our sponsor, Dallas Avionics, who provides innovative products to law enforcement, the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, military, air medical, search and rescue, and special missions operations. Dallas Avionics distributes OEM equipment, including communications equipment, digital audio systems, PA systems, flight tracking, and other mission-critical devices. Visit DallasAvionics.com for more details.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicast and in partnership with Vertical Valor Magazine. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights from Brandon Rose's remarkable journey and his first-hand account of responding to the devastating floods in Central Texas. His stories underscore the resilience, adaptability, and skill necessary to serve an emergency response, especially in extreme conditions. Brandon's emphasis on quality training, innovative technology, and the vital importance of continuous learning remind us all of the critical role public safety aviation plays in saving lives. Thanks again for joining the Hangar Z podcast. We'll catch you next time. Cheers.